Long ago, in a quiet village surrounded by tall mountains and green fields, there lived a young man named Daniel. Daniel was about 24 years old, but despite his youth, his mind was never at rest. From morning until night, his thoughts raced endlessly. His mind jumped from one worry to another, like restless waves in a stormy sea. Sometimes he felt regret about things that had already happened in his past. Other times he became anxious about what might happen in the future. Because of this constant thinking, Daniel rarely felt peaceful. Sleep did not come easily to him, and the joy he once had slowly faded away. Even simple moments that should have made him happy felt heavy and tiring. One day, Daniel heard people in the village talking about an old man who lived far away in the hills. They said this man had once been a respected psychologist in a big city. Many people had visited him for advice, and he had helped countless individuals understand their minds and find peace within themselves. As the years passed, the old man chose to leave the noisy city behind. He moved to a small village surrounded by nature, where life was calm and simple. Occasionally, travelers would come to seek his guidance, and he would offer them wisdom with patience and kindness. Daniel felt a spark of hope when he heard about him. He thought to himself, maybe this wise man can help me quiet my restless mind. Without wasting time, Daniel decided to begin the journey. The road to the hill village was long and difficult. For several days he traveled through forests, narrow paths, and winding roads. His feet became tired, but his hope pushed him forward. At last, he arrived. The village was peaceful and full of greenery. Birds sang in the trees, and the wind moved gently through the leaves. Near the edge of the village stood a small house covered in climbing plants and flowers. Sitting quietly on the wooden porch was the old man. His eyes were closed, and his face looked calm, as if nothing in the world could disturb his peace. Daniel slowly walked closer and spoke with respect. Sir, he said softly, my mind never stops thinking. I feel restless all the time. I want to find peace inside my heart. Can you please help me? The old man slowly opened his eyes and looked at Daniel with a gentle smile. So you wish to find peace, he said calmly. Then come with me. I have a small exercise for you. He led Daniel to a small space in the yard. Then he took a clear glass and filled it with water all the way to the very top. The glass was so full that even the smallest movement could cause the water to spill. Handing the glass to Daniel, the old man said, walk from here to the far end of the village and then return. But remember one thing, you must not spill even a single drop of water. Daniel looked surprised by the unusual task, but he accepted the challenge. Holding the glass carefully with both hands, he began walking. The road through the village was busy. People were talking, children were running, shopkeepers were calling out to customers, and dogs barked loudly nearby. But Daniel did not pay attention to any of it. His entire focus stayed on the glass of water in his hands. Step by step, he moved slowly and carefully, making sure the water stayed perfectly still. Some villagers watched him with curiosity, but Daniel remained completely focused. After some time, he finally returned to the old man. With relief, he said proudly, I completed the walk, and not a single drop spilled. The old man nodded with approval. Then he asked, tell me something. Did you notice the children playing beside the road? Did you hear the dogs barking or the people talking? Daniel shook his head. No, he replied honestly. I did not see or hear anything. I was concentrating only on the glass. The old man smiled gently. That, he said, is the lesson you came here to learn. He continued, when your mind is fully focused on the present moment, there is no room left for fear, worry, or unnecessary thoughts. While you were walking, your attention was only on the water. During that time, your mind became calm and quiet. You were not thinking about your past, and you were not worrying about the future. Daniel stood silently as the meaning of those words slowly became clear. The peace he had been searching for was not something far away. It had always been within him. The secret was simply to live fully in the present moment. Daniel lowered his head with gratitude. Now I understand, he said quietly. If I keep my mind in the present moment, my thoughts will become calm and peace will come naturally. The old man gave a warm smile. As the sun began to set behind the mountains, golden light spread across the village. Birds flew back to their nests, and the evening breeze carried a gentle silence. Daniel started the journey back home. But this time, he was no longer the same restless young man who had arrived. Something inside him had changed. He had discovered the simple secret to calming the mind. Daniel slowly began his journey back toward his village. The narrow road that once felt long and exhausting now seemed different. The same trees stood along the path, the same birds flew across the sky, and the same wind moved through the hills. Yet everything felt more peaceful. For the first time in many years, Daniel was not lost inside his thoughts. Instead of worrying about what had already happened or what might happen tomorrow, he simply walked. He noticed the sound of his footsteps on the ground. He felt the gentle breeze touching his face. He heard the distant songs of birds resting in the trees. Each moment felt calm and clear. During the long walk home, Daniel remembered the old man's lesson again and again. When your mind stays in the present moment, there is no space for fear or confusion. Those words stayed in his heart. Days later, Daniel finally reached his village. The villagers who knew him noticed something different about him immediately. Before his journey, Daniel was always serious and quiet. His face often showed signs of worry, and he rarely spoke with joy. But now something had changed. His eyes looked calm. His face carried a gentle smile. And when people spoke to him, he listened carefully instead of rushing through conversations. His friends asked him what had happened during his journey. Daniel simply smiled and said, "I learned something simple but very powerful." From that day forward, Daniel began practicing what the wise old man had taught him. Every morning when he woke up, instead of letting his mind wander into worries, he focused on the small things around him. He watched the sunlight entering his room, listened to the quiet sounds of the morning, and breathed slowly. When he worked during the day, he paid attention to the task in front of him, instead of thinking about many things at once. And whenever his mind began to run back to the past or jump toward the future, he gently brought it back to the present moment. At first, it was not easy. Old habits tried to return. Some days his thoughts still became restless. But each time that happened, he remembered the glass of water and the walk through the village. Slowly, with patience, his mind became calmer. Weeks passed, then months passed. Daniel's life began to transform in ways he had never imagined. The same village, the same people, and the same daily work were still there. But now he experienced life differently. Simple moments brought him happiness. Conversations felt meaningful. Even silence felt comfortable. People in the village began to notice his peaceful nature. Some of them came to him and asked, "Daniel, how did you become so calm? You were once the most worried person in our village." Daniel would smile gently and tell them about the wise old man in the hills and the lesson of the glass of water. He would explain that peace does not come from running away from problems or searching for something outside ourselves. Peace comes when we learn to guide our attention and live fully in the present moment. Many people listened to his story and began practicing the same lesson. Years later, Daniel often thought about the old man who had helped him change his life. He realized that the task with the glass of water was not just a simple exercise. It was a powerful reminder that the mind becomes peaceful when it is focused, patient, and present. And from that day forward, Daniel carried that lesson with him everywhere he went, because he understood something that many people spend their entire lives searching for. True peace is not something we find in the future. It is something we create in the present moment. As the seasons passed, the quiet change inside him became stronger. Every day he practiced the lesson he had learned in the hills. Whenever his thoughts started running wildly again, he remembered the glass of water in his hands and the careful he had taken through the village. He would pause, take a deep breath, and bring his attention back to the present moment. Little by little, peace became a natural part of his life. One afternoon, while Daniel was sitting near a tree outside his home, a young boy from the village approached him. The boy looked worried and confused. "Daniel," the boy said, "my mind is always full of thoughts. I cannot stop worrying. My parents tell me to relax, but I don't know how. How did you learn to stay so calm?" Daniel looked at the boy kindly. For a moment, he remembered himself years ago, restless, tired, and lost inside his own thoughts. He smiled gently and said, "Let me tell you a story." He then explained his journey to the hills and the lesson given by the wise old man. The boy listened carefully, his eyes wide with curiosity. "But how do I do that?" the boy asked. Daniel picked up a small cup from the ground and filled it with water from a nearby well. Then he handed it to the boy. "Walk slowly to that tree and come back," Daniel said. "But do not spill the water." The boy carefully held the cup and began walking. He moved slowly, watching the water closely. When he returned, he looked proud. "I did it," he said. Daniel then asked him, "While you were walking, did you notice the birds flying above you? Did you hear the people talking nearby?" The boy shook his head. "No," he said. "I was only thinking about the water." Daniel nodded. "That is the same lesson I once learned," he said softly. "When your mind is fully focused on one moment, the noise inside your head becomes quiet." The boy stood silently, thinking about those words. From that day forward, the story of the glass of water slowly spread throughout the village. Whenever someone felt overwhelmed by their thoughts, Daniel would patiently share the same simple lesson. He never claimed to be a teacher or a wise man. He simply passed on the wisdom that had once helped him. Years later, Daniel decided to visit the hill village again. He wanted to thank the old man who had changed his life. When he arrived, the small house was still there, covered with green plants and flowers. The same peaceful atmosphere filled the air, but the porch was empty. A neighbor quietly told Daniel that the old man had passed away many months earlier. Before leaving this world, he had continued sharing his wisdom with travelers who came seeking peace. Daniel stood silently for a long moment, feeling both sadness and gratitude. He realized something important then. The old man had not only given him advice, he had given him a responsibility to carry that wisdom forward and share it with others who were struggling with their restless minds. Daniel looked toward the mountains where the sun was slowly setting. A soft smile appeared on his face. The lesson of the glass of water would never disappear because it now lived inside the hearts of the people who had learned it. And so the simple truth can travel from person to person. Peace does not come from controlling the entire world around us. Peace comes from learning to guide our attention and living fully in the moment we are in. And sometimes the greatest wisdom in life begins with something as simple as a glass of water and a careful walk through a quiet village. Daniel left the hill village early the next morning. The sun was just beginning to rise, and a soft golden light covered the mountains. As he walked down the narrow path, the words of the wise old man echoed in his mind again and again. Keep your mind in the present moment. Daniel realized something important during his journey back home. Peace alone was not enough. The lesson the old man gave him could also help him build a better life. For many years, Daniel had been confused and distracted. Because his mind was always full of worries, he never focused on building anything meaningful. He moved from one small job to another, never staying long enough to grow or improve. But now his mind was different. Now he understood the power of focus. When he finally arrived back in his village, he spent a few days quietly observing his surroundings. Instead of rushing into decisions, he watched carefully. He paid attention to what people needed and what opportunities existed around him. One afternoon, while sitting near the village market, Daniel noticed something interesting. Many farmers traveled long distances to bring fruits, vegetables, and grains to the market. However, there was no one in the village who organized or helped transport these goods efficiently. Sometimes the farmers arrived late, and sometimes their products spoiled before they could sell them. Daniel sat quietly and thought about it. This could be an opportunity, he told himself. The old Daniel would have quickly dismissed the idea, thinking he might fail. But the new Daniel focused only on the present step in front of him. He decided to start small. The next morning, he visited several farmers and offered to help them carry their goods to the market earlier in the day using a small wooden cart he borrowed. In return, he asked for a small payment. At first, it was not easy. The work was hard and the money was little. But Daniel stayed focused. Instead of worrying about becoming rich immediately, he concentrated on doing the job well each day. Step by step, people began to trust him. The farmers appreciated his dedication. They knew he was reliable and they started asking for his help regularly. With the small profits he earned, Daniel slowly saved money. Months passed. Eventually, Daniel bought his own cart. Later, he bought a stronger one. As his work grew, he began organizing transport for more farmers in nearby villages. Soon he was helping dozens of people bring their goods to the market on time. What made Daniel successful was not luck. It was the lesson he had learned from the old man. Whenever challenges appeared, he did not allow his mind to fill with fear. Instead, he focused on the task in front of him, just like he had focused on the glass of water during that walk in the village. Years later, Daniel's small idea turned into a successful business. He owned several carts and hired other workers to help him transport goods between villages and markets. His life improved greatly. He was no longer poor or struggling. But even with his success, Daniel never forgot the simple lesson that started everything. One evening, while sitting outside his home and watching the sunset, he thought about the old man in the hills. If I had never taken that journey, he said quietly to himself, my mind would still be lost in endless thoughts. He realized that the greatest gift the old man had given him was not just peace, it was the ability to focus. And with focus, a person can build not only a peaceful mind, but also a meaningful and successful life. From that day forward, Daniel continued working with patience and discipline, always remembering that true success begins the moment a person learns to control their mind and live fully in the present moment.